Okay, as you can see, we're going to show you a more natural, should we say, example of how we would use key value capture. And look, there's a lot of value added. We're not charging you for all the extra stuff. So we're not even charging you for the first stuff, right? So I guess that's not such a great deal. But anyhow, here we come, and let's take a look at this. Now we see several things here that we didn't have before. Well, one at least. Before, we certainly, when we went back and forth between these things here, as the focus changed, we got a different background, but now you notice that there's this little select thing here, this little select cover, and what that means is that I can just type right away and replace it. I don't have to sweep across and highlight it before doing that. It's already highlighted and selected for me. So that's the first thing that we see. And let's go look at the code and see where that's coming from. A good place to start would be initialization, right? Because we see it happening when we initialize. So let's go and see. All right, these pretty obvious. That's what's putting the 10 in each of these. And then we're setting the focus on the first one, which is why it has the background and the selected text. So initialization didn't really tell us where this was coming from, except to tell us that it's probably happening in our focus event handler. So we'll go look at our focus one. Now we also had our blur event handler, and this is really no different than what we had before. It just turns the background to white, nothing very exciting there. But up here we do have something extra. You notice that when we set the focus on something, what happens? Well, we set the background to bisque, and you can see that here. The background is indeed bisque. And then it also says something here, ev.target.select. Now, just like we use down here, dot focus to set the focus on width. So we have an element dot focus, and that puts the focus on the element. Here, if we use dot select in the same way that we use dot focus, open close paren, what this does is it puts a little select shading over any information that is already in that area, that's already in that field. So it's this here that is giving us that. All right, so it's just whatever element we want, dot select, open close paren, will put select shading across any text that's in there. So if we go back, we've got the first one taken care of, auto select text. We just showed you how that works. Now what's this target ID bit? Well, let's go look. That's going to connect with what else we're going to see happen here. So right now we're in here. I'm going to, now you see this little pointer here? That's from me moving the mouse. I'm going to put that over there, and now you notice it's not moving. My hand is off the mouse. I have a finger on the enter key, and oh, look, all I'm doing is hitting the enter key, and it's automatically jumping back and forth. I don't even need to use this. I mean, I can if I want to, but boy, it's sure nice if I'm typing along to just be able to shift from one to the other using the typing keys. So how's that happening? Well, this is where right here our key press friend is going to come into view. So input stuff, you notice that we're listening for a lot of events, 3 events on input stuff. Input stuff is just this div here. So we're really trying to capture anything inside there. This one is listening for a key press, just like you saw in a previous video. And so when it finds a key press, it's going to go to this event handler right there, input right. So if I go up to input right, let's see what happens. First of all, we're going to restrict ourselves just to input elements. And that's what this and this. This is an input element, this is an input element, that's what these are. And so that's the first thing we're going to do. We're restricting it to that. So that helps. That helps us understand. So if we click anywhere else in this, for instance, if I click here, it's not going to cause this to flip to a new place. If I click here again, you notice that it just stays put where it is. So what is that event handler doing? Well, it's first checking to make sure we have an input field. Then it's checking to see if the key for the event is enter. And remember, that happens when I press the enter, or on some computers the return key. And so if I press the enter key, then it's going to return when I press the enter key and I'm listening for a key press, then the event, as we saw before, the event key is going to get the string enter starting with an uppercase A. And you notice that what happens when we press the enter key, all right, I'll move this back again. You see that's not moving, is that if I'm in width and I press the enter key, it takes me to height. If I'm in height and I press the enter key, it takes me to width. So I need to know which one I'm in. I need to know if I'm in width so that I can then say, okay, I'm going to have code that goes to height. Or if I'm in height, so I can say, okay, I need to have code that goes to window. And so this simply told us, yes, they pressed the enter key. But now we need to know the information about where we are to do that. And that's what ev.target.id does. So just as we do other sorts of things, you notice that we had target, we could have dot inner HTML or whatever else. ID gives us the ID of the thing that is the target. So for the ID for width is WID. The ID for height, let's look at it if you want to come down, is HGT. So those are the IDs. And so up here we're going to test. If my ID is WID, it means I'm currently here. So what I want to do is unhighlight this and go down and highlight this. And I do that simply by changing the focus. So if the focus is currently on the WID, then we change the focus to the HGIT. On the other hand, if we're in height and it comes into this, then this is going to be false because the ID isn't WID, it's HGT. And so what will happen is that it'll skip that, but it'll come here, and that tells it that it now has to set the focus back to width. And so that's the event handler that takes care of all of this for us. So come back, cha-ching, another thing done. What about JavaScript generated clicks? Well, let's go back here, and right now we don't really have anything going with those, but look at this, because you notice that here I have 10 and 10. I'm going to redo this. So here, come back to here and reload. Here I have 10 and 10, and you notice that even though I go back and forth, nothing happens down here, right? This just takes me between the two. But when I go over here, I'm going to click once, that takes me down to here. Now watch down here when I do the next click. I'm going to click again, and you notice that it went back up the way we expected it to here, but it also output the information for what we currently have. I could change this to 6 and then press enter and enter again, and now it's telling me I've got 60 inches of pizza, which is correct. So what's happening here? What's different with this one? Well, let's come over here. And it might be easiest to do a quick compare. You'll notice that here on our input right, that's our event handler for a key press. We just have one thing that happens here if it's a WID and one thing that happens here if it's HGT. Okay, and I actually should have a semicolon after that, so I'll put one there. But now, when we come over here, there's only one thing different, and that's click. So just like we use .focus, just like we use .select, .click does the equivalent of clicking something without me ever having to do it. So you notice this is way over here. I'll change this up here to 4, and I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to hit enter again, and it took things back up there, but it also clicked this button for me. You didn't see it click the way I did this, but it actually got a click. We generated a click from here, and that's how we do it. We just use .click. So now you've learned all kinds of things that you can do.